Hello, hello, hello. Nearly forgot to turn it on that time. There we go. Bjorn. Bjorn, free as the wind blows, as high as the grass grows. He knows to follow his heart. Yeah, Bjorn Johnson left a comment, and I love it when people leave nice comments, not horrible comments, not comments insulting my appearance. And I like nice comments. And Bjorn says, he says, oh, get it queued up there. Great video. Learn a lot from you, as I don't know about these things in detail. Would like to see a similar video from you on the topic of gender and the stuff that goes on there these days, or everywhere these days. Again, it's a bit of a broad church there. Gender. What do you mean? What do you mean, Bjorn? Do you mean like pronouns? How do you know if someone's an idiot? They put their pronouns everywhere. I identify as she, her. Just to fuck with you. Oh yeah. Yeah, we live in a strange time where ideology is everywhere. I'm going to go there, but ideology, these ideologies, whether it's left, right, or otherwise, whether it's free Palestine, boom, 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 free Palestine, boom, 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 boom. Whether it's that ideology or the cult of trans, it's all because of the post-culturalism that we are suffering, because culture is so dilute because everyone's a creator these days. Ideology stepped in to replace the great youth movements of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and that's why everyone's gone introspective and you know, looking at themselves. But gender, so again, it's a bit of a broad church. In the old days, they used the word gender to replace the word sex, because Victorians, our Victorian heritage, we didn't like the word sex, for it's a bit rude, a bit dirty in it, a bit rude. Cover the legs of the piano just in case men get aroused. A flash of the ankle was enough to send a man into a fit of desire. And so gender replaced the word sex. And so instead of on a form, it's a gender instead of sex, because whenever I saw sex on a form, it's a sex, and I'd say as often as possible. You know, I'm one of those. I'm thoroughly irritating. So yeah, we live in a reductive, genderist time now. I think that's where we're going with this. Why do we have pronouns? The reason we have pronouns is because some people like to identify as things that they aren't. Non-binary, eh? Identify as non-binary, eh? I love that, because if you identify as non-binary, you automatically create another binary, i.e. those who identify as non-binary and everyone else don't. So it's an oxymoron. Basically, they're just saying that they don't want to fall into gender conformism. Look, women wear trousers now. Come on now. It shouldn't be allowed, should it? It shouldn't be allowed. But yeah, we live in times where people want to identify as things that they clearly not. Many of these are men who want to identify as women. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, you're not a woman. You're still a man. But you know, I say, live as you please. I don't care. I'm not going to want to fuck you, and you're not going to want to fuck me. So everything's fine and dandy. Everything is fine. But that's why we have pronouns now, because you know, Gary decides he doesn't want to be Gary anymore, and he steals his missus' knickers and slips on some of her lippy, and creates a new persona. And so instead of us going he, him, he goes no, she, her, and you go, all right. And that's where we're at. Yeah, but genderism is incredibly reductive. We were supposed to be moving beyond that. Again, gender then went on to, we talk about gender norms, and the idea that men did certain jobs, women stayed at home, raised the kids, did the cleaning, etc. We were supposed to be moving beyond that, but we've gone back to it now, because if you wear a dress, You can call yourself a woman now. Yeah, it's as reductive as that. It's as reductive as that. Because we have to talk about the great trans issue. In the old days, we had transvestites. Those were men who liked dressing as women for their kicks, and transsexuals, people with gender dysphoria, who were not happy with the way they were and they would feel more comfortable living as their preferred sex, and they'd have surgery to correct that. But now we have an umbrella term called transgender, which conflates both of them, and that's done deliberately so you don't know if Gary has had his meat and two veg cut off. If Gary's a eunuch now, presenting as a woman, whatever that means, we don't know. That's done to muddy the water. That's so Gary, if he's kept his meat and two veg, can say, I'm a woman and I'm going to prison, I want to go to a woman's prison. This is how you know it's a bit odd, because you never get any women who identify as men going into the male estate in prisons, do you? You never get any women, saying, I'm a man, I'm going into the male boxing. Never happens. Have you noticed that? So that's why there's something not right about it. There's something a little bit off. What's that? They're going to cancel you. They can't cancel a dead man. I haven't got any statues for them to pull down, so I should be all right. I should be all right. But yeah, we live in a strange time, where gender, which is a social construct, seems to be shorthand for sex now. It isn't. Sex is real and immutable. Sex has existed beyond us, beyond humanity. Before we came out of the oceans, there was sex. When the cellular division, those organisms decided, do you know what, we need a more effective way to create genetic variation, sex came about. So we would have that variety of development, of evolution. Sex is who you are. It's hardwired into you at a chromosomal level, XX, XY, into your DNA, and you go through your puberty and it makes you who you are. Did you know right, one of the biological differences between men and women is their bowels? Did you know that? It's true. I love this. So if you've had the op and you're a woman now, you're not, you've still got the bowels of a man. And this is why women often get constipated and men suffer from flatulence. That's why if you pick up that lovely lady, strapping lady, and take her back to yours, have a bit of fun, and then next morning she gets up and farts louder than you. Yep, you've pulled Gary, everyone. But there you go. There are biological differences right down to your guts, and that's what makes us men and women. But yeah, so we have this like transgenderism, which comes out of transhumanism. Transhumanism is this very strange ideology that believes that via using surgery and technology that we will transcend humanity. No, you'll stop being human. You become something else, and transgenderism comes out of that. And all these ideologies have a destructive element to them, and it's very, 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 very peculiar. I think this is what you want me to talk about, Bjorn, isn't it? Is it? I don't know. I feel like I don't know if I'm heading in the right direction for you. But why is this a thing now? Well, very few powerful people who've got into positions of power decided that we need to break down all barriers. We need to get rid of all the barriers. And the people that are going to be affected are mainly the children and the women, the most vulnerable in our society. And if you're sensible and right-minded, you can see this is going on. You can see this is an issue. Again, I have no problem with you living any way you please. If you identify as a deck chair, carry on. But there are some limits that we need to put in here. We need to protect the vulnerable in our society. So yeah, where else can we go with this? How I got turned on to all this was via my daughter, because she went to secondary school and she came back and said, she was basically telling me what was going on. And yeah, it was a bit of a real eye opener. And to go from one school to another, and they're talking about all this stuff, turned me onto the subject. And it's in the schools. And this is where it's wrong. They want to get the kids young for some reason, And again, you just do a little thought experiment. You think, why do drag queens need to do story time hour in the libraries for children? Why do they need to do that? Why aren't they reading stories for the old age pensioners, down at the old folks' home? Why aren't the drag queens helping picking up the litter? If they want to do their social duty, but it's because they want access to children. You've got to ask yourself why. Why are they doing that? They're not making themselves useful in other aspects of our society. And that's why people go, really? But, I go to the library and say, I want to read story to the kids. I go, you can't do it, Mr. Locke. You can't do it. But, slip on a dress, you're fine. Again, if you're a drag queen, good for you. It's not my desired entertainment. We did all that in the 90s. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, love that film. We did all. Paul O'Grady, loved him. We did all that in the 90s. You're so passé. It's so old-fashioned now. So old-fashioned, so incredibly dull. I can't believe we already did it, and we're doing it again. But it goes back to being, trans, because there's an aspect where drag and trans overlap. But yeah, it's a strange world we live in. Only we would complicate things like this, but it's the only place where men would put on a dress and claim that they were a vulnerable, strata of society. Really, and it's stealing. It's a form of I'm going to go there. It's a form of cultural appropriation. This is the one thing they don't say. If a person, I don't know, braids their hair or wears a kilt, they say it's cultural appropriation. But if a man dresses as a woman, that's perfectly fine. And this is the hypocrisy of it all. They try and steal the female experience. They'll never feel this female experience because fear is something that some women experience on a daily basis, whether it's via domestic violence, whether it's just walking the streets. Again, as a man, I can walk the streets, unaccosted. It is hard though. Sometimes I have to beat off the women with a big stick. That's why I've got the dog. It keeps the randy women away because of my beauty, my chiselled looks. What's that? Pillsbury Doughboy? How dare you? How dare you? But of a night I can walk the streets. Well, crikey! The other day it was two in the morning. Without fear. Even though statistically, as a man, I'm more likely to be attacked and murdered. But I've got to that age now where I've kind of got out of that. But women, they carry that fear with them, and we've got to appreciate that. We have to appreciate that. And we don't talk about those things. We don't talk about safety. We don't talk about boundaries and the vulnerabilities of others. Instead, we target the children. And that's where it's wrong, because children's minds are malleable. You can get them to believe anything, and kids want to be anything they want. Crikey, I want to be an astronaut. Some kids want to be dinosaurs. But a fire truck, God, imagine the surgery you'd need if your kid wanted to be a fire truck and identify as one. And then you bring into things like this as the medical interventions, puberty blockers. Now, puberty blockers are a thing. Initially used to help with something called precocious puberty. Children can develop puberty very young, 4 or 5, and if they get that, it can really act. They can act up in a way that's sexually precocious, and social situations can be a bit much, and it can be physically detrimental to them. So puberty blockers were developed to, delay their puberty until 9 or 10. And when you go through puberty, it's that final brick in the wall, that final cementing of your personality. You learn to desire. It shapes your sexuality. That final blob of hormones, dollop of hormones, and it finally helps you develop your sense of self. And again, how a child can give informed consent, I'll never know. It's quite bizarre, but this is that thing about breaking down boundaries. If children can consent to that, then they can start to consent to other things. You follow? This is where I wink at the camera. Dangerous. But if you delay a child's puberty, it means that they don't develop that final sense of self. It means that they never develop desire. It means that they'll never be able to grow out of the confusion that they might be in. Again, crikey, as a teenager, I was confused. I was not about that. No, not about that at all. But confused about other things. Like what ZX Spectrum game I should play first, because it used to take 20 minutes to load a game in. The important things. But kids don't have to worry about that now, and so they get involved in these various ideologies, because ideology has replaced vast tracts of culture in this post-cultural world. It's a shame. You're repeating yourself. This ideology is incredibly disruptive and dangerous, but the beautiful thing is, when it goes into schools, the boys laugh at it. They find it funny, teenage boys, because they've gone through puberty and they know what they want out of life, and it can never win in the real world, because it can never win. It's designed to smash the heteronormative society, which is quite hilarious, because anybody who pushes this ideology has a heteronormative couple to thank for their existence. Unless they're one of those lesbian couples with a turkey baster, and that's a whole different aspect. But you'll always need a large gamete and a small motile gamete to create life. Isn't it a wonderful thing? It's the circle of life. Hakuna Matata. So I don't know if this is what you wanted me to talk about, Bjorn, because it's a big old subject, isn't it? It's a big old subject. But it all comes back. It all started around 2015 when, in the UK, the final equality for gay people was cemented with gay marriage. And then all the campaigners said, who do we fight for now? And there was a bloke in a dress went past. We went, him, we'll fight for him, because he's got all his rights. This is it. And if you put any critical thinking onto any of this, it's quite laughable. It's all quite laughable. Again, this is a Western luxury belief system that we're dealing with. In other countries, it doesn't happen. Yeah, there are cultures that may adopt cross-dressing as part of their culture, and that's fine. That's fine. Who remembers ladyboys? The good old days of ladyboys. You knew where you stood with ladyboys. But the fact that it affects the most vulnerable in our society, women and children, is the problem. It shouldn't. It shouldn't even be a thing. And women's private single-sex spaces, whether it be toilets or swimming pools or prisons or rape crisis centres, sports. You've seen it in the Olympics. If you're a man doing this, you're cheating. And when it comes to contact sport, it is dangerous. Male puberty gives you certain strengths, and female puberty gives you certain weaknesses that are incompatible. And that's why, like I said, you never see a female who identifies as a man it going the other way, because they're sensible. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want to die. And it's not transphobic to question any of this. This is the thing. It's one of those terms that they use to shut you down. It's like calling someone a racist or homophobe or transphobe. They do that to shut you down, and you should be able to question anything, and it's just, again, ideology to the left of me, ideology to the right, and these are weird times. And I do think it's got something to do with it being a post-millennial tension. Again, historically, every time that there was a millennia, some weird things used to happen in societies at the time, and I think it's a result of that. I think, again, in the West, instead of solving the real problems, we create new problems that are just a distraction. It's just a distraction, and that's without Big Pharma. That guy who's 6'7" and keeps sheep. No, wrong kind of Big Pharma. If you get the Big Pharma involved, again, wrap the tinfoil around your head. People who go down this road are looking at a lifetime of medical intervention, and that's a money maker, that is. So the medical profession, they go, yeah, this is cool, because it's all about affirmation. Now, if I put on the peak cap and the shirt with the epaulets on, and I say, I identify as a pilot, are you going to let me fly the plane? When the guy goes to the psychiatrist and says, he feels like Napoleon, you're not going to make him the Emperor of France, are you? When the anorexic walks in and says, oh, look at me, I'm so fat, the doctor goes, you know what? You could do with losing a few pounds, even though they're probably a few meals away from a coma or even death. We don't affirm people who are ill, but we affirm this. Why? Always question it. Ask yourself, why are we affirming these things? Why are we making men happy? Because at the heart of it, it's a big ball of misogyny. It's about hating women. Women had a good run, 100 years, had a good run. Now men, the patriarchy, are claiming it all back by slipping on the dress and creating a new woman with extra bits. And like I said, the more you look at it, the more you analyse it, the dafter it becomes. And at the heart of it is rampant male sexuality and predatory men. And because men are predators, it's in our DNA. It's the whole hunter-gatherer thing from being cavemen. But now, instead of hunting and gathering, for food, it's usually around sex and desire, because we don't have enough in our minds and hearts to bother us. And again, fueled by the unregulated pornography on the internet, it allows men to fall into very, very dangerous, mind-altering situations. And there's no end. It's the internet. It's the Pandora's box of the internet that's done this. Now, again, it could be just that you're reflecting it. So you're holding up a mirror and reflecting it. It's a bit like the racism thing. That the internet and social media just reflects the internal issue, and it brings it out like a boil. Like a poultice on a boil. It could be that that's what the internet is. I do not know, But hopefully it will pass, because at the end of it, you are who you are, and you can't beat biology. Mother Nature will trump us all. And this is where men, the strange desires of a few men can upend a society. And we are headed into, because of post-culturism, we are headed into like a societal cul-de-sac, because it replaces creativity, it replaces a sense of social cohesion. It just creates division, whatever the ideology is. It's destructive at the end of it. It's all destructive. There's nothing positive coming out of it. And you would notice that there is no culture coming out of it. And if there is culture coming out, it's pretty weak and pretty feeble, and disturbing, because desire is at the heart of it, But yeah, I don't know if that's what you wanted me to talk about. I don't know. But yeah, I've got to thank my daughter for kind of turning me onto all this, because I had no skin in the game until she went to secondary school, and it was all, oh, this one identifies as that, and that one's changed their name to this. And again, it goes back to when we were young, because I imagine most of the people watching this are probably my age. I like to think now. We expressed ourselves with a new T-shirt, or buying an album, or going to a football game, and being with the lads, or whatever culture there was there that helped us find ourselves. And now the kids, they play with this genderism, and it is incredibly reductive, and it is incredibly narrow. It's not as freeing as you think it is, because they have all these rules and regulations, whereas we had, pop stars, from Bowie, to Boy George, non-conforming, and it was about fun and an image, and this isn't about that. This is about following the flock, and that's not what self-expression was ever about, was it? It was about doing your own thing, but still being a part of something. So yeah, I don't know if this is a good video or not. I don't know. But anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Could you leave a comment or a like or something? I think that's what you say if you're a YouTuber. And yeah, if you've got any questions, leave them, Bjorn, or anyone else who finds the world quite hilarious, because it's really simple. There's only man and woman. And they go, oh yeah, but what about intersex? Well, intersex only represents something like 0.04% of the entire population, and they usually have a dominant sexual characteristic. They're usually born male or female, but their development may leave them some indeterminate external characteristics, or internal, because there are many ways this can be, but there's usually a dominant factor to this, and that's without chromosomal issues as well. But again, when they're babies, it can be hard for doctors to visually ascertain what the dominant characteristic is. That's why they leave it till post-puberty to do the chromosomal checks and whatnot. But that creates certain societal issues to deal with. And those people are again a very, very, very slight minority. Well, very, very small minority, and we should have our sympathies. But this is something else. Again, the umbrella term transgender was designed to confound and confuse and enable intact men, access to women's spaces wholly and totally unchallenged. And good men stand at the door to stop the bad men going in, and you've got to remember that. And that's where we're at. And it's, again, a Western luxury belief, because there are many other issues we could be solving, but we concentrate on this very narrow aspect, and it all comes from, like I say, a very small, powerful lobby, and that's the worrying thing. I describe it like this: it's a sissy porn castration cult. There you go. That's your takeaway. That's your hot take from that. Sissy porn castration cult. And yeah, those people are out there, and they get great joy from corrupting young people on the internet and forcing them into areas. Yeah, it's as dark as that. And the more you dig and the more you explore, it's just crazy shit. I'm just so glad that my kids are older, and the internet is thoroughly corrupting, and you should, like I say, unsubscribe don't watch any of my videos. Go out, sit on a hill and watch the sun come up or go down. The internet will destroy us all. He said, oh dear, oh god, oh dear. Like I say, any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll see if I can answer them. And yeah, and just to reiterate, I don't care how you live your life, it really has no interest to me, but it's all down to, this all goes back to the reductive idea of identity politics. Everyone's got to have an identity. It's reduced to your preferred gender, whatever that is, you know, your race, all those bits that aren't important. It's really reductive and useless, you know, rather than talking about, you know, what people do and how good they are. That's what all this ideological and identity politics stuff is. It's about reducing you to your component parts. And there's a lot of sexism, and there's a lot of ageism, and there's a lot of homophobia in all of this, you know, and it's not healthy, and it's come out of the internet, and the internet fuels all of this, and it's not very good. Not sure if that's exactly what you wanted, Bjorn. Hopefully it's worked, and yeah, leave a comment, I suppose. And am I going to get cancelled now? Am I going to get cancelled? Nah, because I'm not a woman. It's only the women that go after. And on that, because it's the misogyny, I'll leave you there. Ta-ta.